The message from the Galactic Council was a simple one, delivered in a tone that sent chills through the heart of every human across the galaxy. The transmission began with a symbol, an intricate ancient sigil, the mark of the most powerful coalition of alien species ever known. Then came the voice. This is the Galactic Council speaking to the Terran Republic. Your actions have been observed. You have disrupted the balance of power that has existed for millennia. You are hereby declared enemies of the galaxy. War will commence immediately. Surrender is your only option. There were no more pleasantries. No final warnings. Just a cold, calculated ultimatum. For humanity, it was a moment of profound silence, a moment before the storm. Across Earth's capital, the reactions were swift. In the presidential palace, President Sophia Graves stared at the screen, her hands gripping the edges of the podium. This was it, the moment they'd been preparing for, but had never fully believed would arrive. The room around her buzzed with frantic energy, as advisors scrambled to make sense of the Council's demands. "How do you respond, Madam President?" asked General Rourke, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The Council's declaration had reverberated across every channel, every fleet, and every military base. The Terran military was already on high alert, the tension palpable. Graves turned her gaze to the screen again, but instead of fear, her eyes burned with an unwavering resolve. "Is that all?" she replied, her voice calm but firm, a flicker of defiance in her tone. The room fell silent. The Council had expected trembling, panic. Instead, they had received a challenge. Graves wasn't just answering the question. She was deflecting it, taking control of the narrative. "We're not the ones to bend, General," she said, turning to face the assembled military leaders. "Prepare the fleets. I'll speak to the people. And get me every ambassador we have left. We're going to show them what happens when you poke the bear." Elsewhere, in the labyrinthine depths of Earth's most secure military complex, General Marcus Rourke's mind was already racing. Despite his experience in war, nothing had ever prepared him for this. The alien forces that made up the Galactic Council were vast, technologically superior, and politically unified in ways humanity could barely comprehend. Yet, there was a glimmer of something that made him hold steady: humanity's unyielding will. "We've been underestimated," he muttered under his breath. "It's a mistake they won't live to regret." The rest of the military leaders exchanged looks, their faces hardening in shared determination. They knew the Council's decision wasn't just a threat, it was a challenge. And if humanity was anything, it was a species that rose to challenges. On the other side of the galaxy, in the heart of the Galactic Council's main command station, representatives from more than 20 species listened intently to their declaration. Their leader, a being known only as the Overseer, smiled, though it was a smile that lacked warmth. "Let them think they have a choice," the Overseer said, their voice like a low hum that reverberated across the chamber. "We'll show them the power of unity." As the transmission ended, the Overseer's eyes flicked to a screen displaying the Terran system. The human race had just made its first mistake, underestimating their enemies. Soon, they would learn just how disastrous that could be. Back on Earth, President Graves was already addressing the masses. The nation's military was poised for what seemed like an impossible task. But the president's words rang out loud and clear. "The Galactic Council wants war," she said. Her voice echoed across billions of screens. "We say bring it. We're ready." And with that, the first shots of a conflict that would decide the fate of the galaxy were fired. But humanity would not cower. Humanity would not back down. The Galactic Council had just made its first and most dangerous miscalculation. They had called for war. And humanity's only question was, is that all? The message from President Sophia Graves echoed through the cosmos, reverberating across every network, every relay station, and every alien fleet that the Galactic Council controlled. Her words were clear, concise, and above all, defiant. "We are humanity. You want war? Fine. But don't expect us to beg for mercy. The only thing we're asking is if you're ready for what's coming. The broadcast reached all corners of the galaxy in mere seconds, its content splashing across the news feeds of hundreds of alien species. What had been a universal consensus, that humanity was an insignificant upstart species, was now being called into question. The first response from the Council had been made in arrogance, and humanity had answered it with a challenge. To the alien races of the Galactic Council, this was unthinkable. The Terrans were new, unrefined, and in many cases, completely unknown. They had only recently begun to develop technology capable of exploring the stars, and even then, it was barely on par with that of their more established counterparts. But humanity had done what no one else could have imagined. They had called their bluff. On Earth, the President's message had ignited a firestorm. The world was watching, but for the first time in decades, the people felt a strange sense of unity. Fear was a constant companion in the shadow of such overwhelming powers, but President Graves' words did something unexpected. They emboldened humanity. In the control center of Earth's military, General Marcus Rourke watched as the message played out on a dozen screens. His face was unreadable, but his mind was already working through the logistics of what lay ahead. The response from the Galactic Council had been fast, almost too fast, revealing a weakness he hadn't anticipated. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. "Do you think they'll back down?" a voice behind him asked. It was Commander Nadia Lennox, one of the fleet's top tacticians. She had a look of fierce determination in her eyes, but even she couldn't hide the strain of uncertainty that had settled into her shoulders. Rourke gave a short, grim chuckle. "No, they'll come at us harder now. The Council doesn't tolerate challenges, not from anyone, especially not from a species they've labeled as insignificant. But we have an advantage," Lennox said, stepping closer to the main console, her fingers flying across a holographic map of the galaxy. "They think we're a threat, but they don't realize how much further we've come. The latest intel from the Council's ships shows their fleet's biggest weakness. They underestimate the power of our adaptability. They'll learn that soon enough." Rourke nodded. "Our advantage is surprise. We've always been fast to evolve, to adapt to new environments. We're going to hit them where it hurts, their own arrogance." In the briefing room, the rest of the military leadership assembled, including some of the most senior commanders of the Terran fleet. Rourke stood at the head of the table, his eyes sharp as he addressed them. "Here's the situation," he began, voice calm yet commanding. "The Council has declared war. They think they have the upper hand. But the truth is they don't understand how fast we move when cornered. We have no allies, but we don't need them. We've fought alone before, and we've always come out on top." The room fell silent as Rourke let his words settle. They all understood the stakes now. This wasn't just about defending humanity. It was about sending a message to every other species in the galaxy that humanity would never back down. "We will respond in kind. No more games. Our fleets are ready. Our forces are mobilized. But most importantly, we're going to show the Council something they haven't seen before. We'll make them regret ever thinking they could dictate our fate." As the meeting broke and commanders filed out, Rourke stood by the window of the command center, staring out at the stars. He could almost feel the approaching conflict, a pressure that was building, thick with anticipation. On the other side of the galaxy, the Overseer watched the human broadcast with growing interest. His cold, alien eyes narrowed as he processed the implications of Graves' message. The audacity of the Terrans was remarkable, but it was also dangerous. They had just made themselves a target, and there was no turning back now. "We will see how long their defiance lasts," the Overseer murmured, his voice low. "Prepare the fleets. Initiate full-scale operations. It is time to end this." The countdown had begun. The first volley of shots would soon be fired, and the galaxy would know that humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The war was about to begin. The first battle didn't start with a bang, it began with a whisper. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's ability to respond with both speed and precision. The alien fleets, confident in their technological superiority, had made their way toward Earth, expecting a desperate, disorganized fight. What they found instead was a force they could not have anticipated. As the Council's vanguard arrived at the outer rim of the solar system, they were met with an eerie silence. No fleets lined up to meet them in the vastness of space, no immediate defense, just a stillness that rang in the vacuum. But it was that stillness that spelled their doom. The Terran military, already in position, watched and waited, observing their every move. The Council's flagship, a massive, glistening behemoth capable of destroying entire planets with a single strike, moved toward the planet at an unhurried pace. But it had no idea what lay in its path. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first transmission from the Galactic Council. And in the silence of space, Earth's true strength came to life. The first strike wasn't from Earth's traditional forces. Instead, it came from the depths of the solar system, an array of unmanned ships, fast and sleek, designed for one purpose: to disrupt the enemy before they even knew what hit them. These ships, dubbed Raptors, darted out from hidden positions behind Jupiter, each carrying powerful EMP devices designed to disable the alien ship's advanced systems. Within seconds of launching, the Raptors descended on the Council's fleet, unleashing a flurry of electromagnetic pulses that scrambled their advanced targeting systems. The flagship's shields flickered, its communication channels flooded with interference. The Council fleet scrambled, a rare moment of chaos, as their superiority was momentarily nullified. Now, General Marcus Rourke's voice came through the comms, his tone unwavering. All fleets engage. Earth's fleet, fast and agile, surged forward with a fury that no one could have predicted. The flagship was their primary target, but the smaller ships that followed were just as dangerous, sleek, deadly, and coordinated. Humanity's ships, equipped with technology scavenged from the wreckage of earlier alien battles, moved with an efficiency and ferocity that no one had expected from a species they had deemed inferior. Commander Nadia Lennox led the charge from the bridge of the Talon, a destroyer that had been retrofitted with technology far beyond the Council's expectations. Lock onto their secondary cruisers, all batteries fire, she barked, watching as her crew followed her orders without hesitation. Energy blasts erupted from the Talon, slamming into an alien cruiser's hull with deadly accuracy. It wasn't just the technology they had that made them formidable, it was how they used it. Where the Council's fleet relied on slow, calculated maneuvers, humanity's forces used their superior adaptability and tactics to overwhelm their enemies. The battle raged in the cold of space, but it wasn't just about firepower. It was about human ingenuity. Earth's fleet wasn't just throwing missiles. They were outthinking their enemies at every turn. A few minutes into the conflict, the tide began to turn. The alien ships were disoriented, their systems still reeling from the surprise EMP strikes. The Council's forces were finding themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outsmarted by a force they had dismissed as nothing more than an afterthought. On the Talon, Lennox watched with grim satisfaction as the final blow was delivered to one of the smaller alien ships. Target their main engine next. We end this now. But it wasn't just the tactical genius of human commanders that set them apart. It was the resilience of their soldiers. Earth Special Forces had been trained for years to handle situations just like this, operating behind enemy lines with precision and ruthlessness. While the fleets clashed above, these ground teams infiltrated alien positions, sabotaging critical infrastructure, and executing covert missions that crippled the Council's ability to launch counterattacks. Back at Earth's command center, President Sophia Graves watched the battle unfold on countless screens. She wasn't just the leader of a nation anymore. She was the face of a species that had just proven its worth in the galaxy. The initial shock of the Council's declaration had been replaced by something else now: confidence. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Council never saw this coming, she said, her voice steady. Prepare for the next phase. We're just getting started. As the last of the alien ships retreated, battered but still powerful, the humans had made their mark. The galaxy was on notice. Humanity was no longer a passive species. It was a force, one that would stop at nothing to protect its future. The Council had poked the bear, and now they were feeling the consequences. The Galactic Council had never expected this. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, their ability to adapt, and the sheer unpredictability of their response. What was meant to be a swift victory had now turned into a nightmare. The Council ships were retreating, their advanced fleets crippled by human ingenuity, and yet the true weight of the conflict had yet to be fully realized. What the Council hadn't counted on was humanity's ability to not just survive, but thrive under pressure. In the heart of the Council's command station, Overseer HFY, the leader of the Council, paced in agitation. The holographic map of the Terran solar system hovered before him, displaying the human fleet's movements with a sharp, almost clinical precision. Their tactics, their ingenuity, had confounded him. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were playing a different game altogether. Get me the admirals, HFY demanded, his voice cold and tight, his sharp, elongated features twisted in frustration. Now, his second-in-command, a towering figure from the reptilian's Rathii species, approached the central control panel, his scales reflecting the cold light. We've been underestimating them, Overseer. The humans are more dangerous than we believed. They adapted faster than we thought possible. HFY clenched his fists. This is no longer just a fight for resources. The Terrans are challenging our very authority. We must act swiftly before their courage spreads beyond this war. The war had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. What had started as a simple declaration had turned into a full-scale campaign that threatened the foundation of the Council's unity. One by one, the species that made up the Council were beginning to question their decision to go to war with humanity. On the bridge of the Titanus, the flagship of the Rathii fleet, Admiral Kthal stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the viewports as the solar system loomed in the distance. His race, known for their intelligence and brutality, had been one of the most vocal advocates for declaring war on Earth. Now, Kthal was unsure whether he had made a grave mistake. The humans are unpredictable, Kthal admitted to his crew, his voice betraying a hint of concern. Their ships are faster than we calculated. Their weapons, far more effective than expected. We must take action before their resistance grows further. What do you suggest, Admiral? One of his officers asked, her voice cautious. Kthal's claws scraped the control panel as he thought for a moment. We cannot simply overpower them with brute force. We need to break their morale, destroy their resolve. Their strength lies not just in their technology, but in their unity. We will need to divide them. We will find a way to break their spirit. As the Rathii fleet prepared for its next move, something far more dangerous was happening elsewhere in the galaxy. Across the vast expanse of space, scattered reports began to surface, and the news was unmistakable. Humanity was not just surviving. They were rallying. In the wake of the battle, human soldiers, once seen as primitive and chaotic, now stood as a symbol of strength and resilience. The human military was expanding rapidly, every species across the galaxy now watching with growing anxiety. Earth's unexpected strength had forced other galactic powers to reconsider their own readiness. As humans began to push back against the Council ships, whispers began to spread. What if they were the true rulers of this galaxy? If only given time to evolve. Across alien civilizations, governments were in crisis mode. The once unified voice of the Galactic Council was beginning to fracture. Many of the member species now openly questioned the wisdom of their actions. Some proposed negotiations, while others, fearful of humanity's unrelenting drive, insisted that total annihilation was the only solution. Back on Earth, President Sophia Graves stood before the War Council, her expression calm but determined. "They're afraid of us now," she said, her voice steady. "But we won't stop. They wanted to break us. They wanted to show us our place in the galaxy. But we're not backing down. We're going to win this. Not just for Earth, but for every species that's ever been told they don't matter." The room was silent as her words sank in. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and had come out swinging. The question no longer was if humanity could win, but how far they would go to ensure their place in the galaxy. On the alien side, HFY's voice crackled through the comm channels to the Council. "The Terrans are more dangerous than we've anticipated. It is time for a new strategy. We will not destroy them with brute force alone. We will make them face their own fear. If we cannot break them, then we will make them fear us." Fear had settled in the hearts of the Council, and it was a fear they couldn't shake. Humanity was no longer just a species to be crushed. It was a force that had carved its place in the galaxy. And now it was the Council who feared what they had awakened. The tide of war had shifted, but it wasn't the crushing advance of humanity's military might that caught the attention of the galaxy. It was something more profound, something that shook the foundations of everything the Galactic Council thought it knew about the Terran species. Humanity was not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to redefine the future of the galaxy. Over the past few weeks, Earth's military forces had learned, adapted, and evolved at an unprecedented rate. The Council's fleet had been pushed back, their attempts to regroup stymied by human ingenuity. But it wasn't enough. The question was no longer whether humanity could withstand the invasion. It was how much longer the Council could maintain their arrogant grip on the galaxy. On the bridge of the Apex, one of humanity's newly commissioned warships, General Marcus Rourke surveyed the situation with a quiet intensity. The Council was regrouping, but their forces were fractured. The truth was, they had miscalculated the human will to fight and the resourcefulness that came with it. Humans didn't just adapt to their surroundings, they adapted to their enemies. "We've got their fleet scattered," Rourke said, his voice steady as he addressed his command staff. "But they'll come at us with everything they've got. It's what they do, they strike hard, fast, and with no mercy. We need to be ready for their next move." Commander Nadia Lennox, standing at Rourke's side, nodded sharply. "We've been hitting their supply lines, disrupting their communications. They're starting to lose their unity. The Zrathii, in particular, are looking for a way out. They don't want to fight this war anymore." "That's a crack in their armor," Rourke replied, his gaze fixed on the holographic map. "We can exploit it, but we need to make them feel the pressure. We hit them where it hurts, at their core." Human forces had been waging a two-front war. The first was in space, where the Terran fleet had proven its tactical brilliance, outmaneuvering the larger, slower ships of the Council. The second was on the ground, in the occupied worlds where humanity's special forces teams had infiltrated alien-held territories. These forces, operating behind enemy lines, had been instrumental in weakening the Council's control over its member species. Sabotage, intelligence gathering, and strategic strikes had turned the tide in humanity's favor. But the real game-changer was a breakthrough that no one had expected. While humanity's military strategy was proving effective, their greatest weapon had always been their adaptability, and the Council had failed to account for their ability to innovate under pressure. Earth scientists had developed a new form of energy weapon, one capable of disabling entire fleets without destroying them outright. The pulse cannon, as it had been dubbed, was humanity's answer to the Council's dominance in space warfare. It was not just a weapon. It was a message. The first pulse shot had been fired in the heart of the battle at the Jovian system. The alien flagship, once thought impervious, had been disabled in an instant, its systems crashing to a halt. The pulse cannon sent ripples through the Council's command, forcing them to confront the terrifying truth. Humanity had caught up, and in many ways, surpassed them. The weapon didn't destroy. It incapacitated, leaving the aliens stranded, helpless, in the vast emptiness of space. As the pulse cannon's success echoed across the battlefield, a tense silence fell over the Council's command stations. For the first time, doubt crept into the minds of the leaders who had once seen humanity as an insignificant threat. They had miscalculated, and now they were paying the price. In the Galactic Council chambers, the Overseer watched the report from the front lines with growing concern. The once unified alliance of alien species was crumbling, their morale shattered by the unexpected strength of the humans. The Overseer's fingers twitched over the control panel, but there was little to be done. The damage had been done. They've learned too quickly, the Overseer muttered under his breath. What was meant to be a conquest is now a struggle for survival. We cannot afford to underestimate them again. The Overseer turned to his council, his voice cold and commanding. We have two choices. We either escalate this war to a scale they cannot fathom, or we negotiate. I believe we should make a show of force, destroy their colonies, break their resolve. Let's remind them of who they're dealing with. A murmur of agreement passed through the room, but a single voice broke the silence. Is that the right move? It was the representative from the CERN-AA, an insectoid species known for their tactical minds. The Terrans they will not break. They've proven that. We cannot destroy them by force alone. Perhaps we should consider an alternative strategy. The Overseer's eyes narrowed. What do you propose? Their strength comes from their unity. They fight for something greater than themselves. If we cannot defeat them in battle, we must break that unity. We target their leaders. The room fell silent at the suggestion. It was a dangerous idea, one that risked turning the war into something far worse. But it was a reflection of the Council's growing fear. Humanity was no longer just a nuisance. They were a force, and the galaxy was beginning to realize just how dangerous it could be to challenge them. Back on Earth, President Sophia Graves watched the reports from the front lines, the weight of the war heavy on her shoulders. But despite the odds, she knew one thing. Humanity had passed the point of no return. There was no turning back now. The Council had pushed them into a corner, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happens when you push too far. The war had stretched on longer than anyone had predicted. What began as a simple challenge from the Galactic Council had spiraled into an all-out conflict that threatened to reshape the entire galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just defending its home. They were rewriting the rules of interstellar warfare. On Earth, President Sophia Graves stood before a council of military leaders, advisors, and strategists. The situation had reached a boiling point. The council had made its move, pushing for total annihilation, but the human response was clear. No more negotiations, no more compromises. The next move would determine the fate of the galaxy. Over the last several months, we've fought tooth and nail to protect our future, Graves began, her voice firm, yet carrying the weight of responsibility. The Council has underestimated us at every turn, but now, they're playing for keeps. They want to break our spirit, crush our will. But here's the truth, we've already won. They know it, and now we're going to make them understand why they made the biggest mistake of their lives. Across the room, General Marcus Rourke nodded, his expression unwavering. We've pushed them back, but now we need to hit them where it hurts, at their very heart. The Zrathii, the Inari, they're all showing signs of division. We need to make sure they don't recover from this. Commander Nadia Lennox spoke next, her voice sharp and tactical. We've seen the cracks forming, sir. The Council's leadership is starting to fracture. Some of the species want to negotiate. The Zrathii have already begun pulling their forces back. If we push just a little further, we can fracture their entire alliance. A deep silence settled over the room. Humanity had never been this close to victory, but this next move would be critical. The war had cost billions of lives, and the stakes were higher than ever. The galaxy's future was on the line. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about sending a message to the rest of the galaxy. "We've been preparing for this moment," Graves said, her voice hardening. "We've developed a new weapon, one that will ensure that the Council never again questions humanity's place in the galaxy. We're going to strike at their heart, their capital." The room went still. Everyone understood the gravity of the President's words. The capital of the Galactic Council, the heart of their entire alliance, was a symbol of their power. A single strike there would cripple their ability to wage war, and with their command structure shattered, the Council would be forced to concede. But it wasn't a simple task. The capital was heavily fortified, surrounded by the most advanced defenses known to any species. "We've analyzed their defenses," Rourke said, stepping forward. "We know their weak points, but it's going to take everything we've got to breach it." Graves turned to him, her gaze steady. "We're ready. Prepare the fleet. We're going to end this war." In the void of space, humanity's fleet was already moving, its ships streaking toward the heart of the enemy's territory. They weren't just sending a message, they were delivering the final blow. The Council's fleets were still in disarray, scattered across the galaxy, trying desperately to regroup, but they had no idea what was coming. As humanity's ships closed in on the capital, the Council's leaders were in turmoil. They had seen the pulse cannons' devastating effects, the crippling strikes against their fleets, but they had never anticipated humanity's resilience. Now, faced with the prospect of losing everything they had worked for, the overseer of the Galactic Council stood before his fellow leaders, his eyes dark with frustration. "We can't let them reach the capital," he growled. "If we lose control of the core, the entire galaxy will spiral into chaos. We will lose everything." But deep inside he knew the truth. It was already too late. The humans had broken their unity, shattered their resolve, and now there was no going back. Back on Earth, President Graves watched the final battle unfold on her holoscreen, the tension palpable. The outcome of the war was no longer in doubt. The Council had already failed. The question was what would happen when humanity took its place among the stars. "We're not just winning this war," Graves said softly, almost to herself. "We're changing the galaxy." The final assault on the Galactic Council's capital was swift and brutal. Humanity's fleet, with its cutting-edge technology and relentless precision, pierced through the defenses, targeting critical systems with surgical strikes. The capital, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a broken monument to the Council's arrogance. As the final blow landed, the message was clear. Humanity had claimed its place in the galaxy. The Council, faced with defeat, had no choice but to surrender. The once mighty alliance of alien species crumbled, their fleets scattering in the face of the unstoppable force that humanity had become. For the first time in history, the galaxy was forced to reckon with humanity. The war was over, but the true battle had only just begun. The rise of humanity as a galactic power would change the future of the stars, and there was no turning back.